Hello, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, welcome one and all. We are here again, and we're going to be tackling advanced techniques in SketchUp. Before we get going, so I hear you guys have interim Friday for your project 2 for Design Studio.
Yes, sir. Interim
Ah,
for climate.
for climate. All right. Oh, that should be fun, right?
Yep.
Um, well, do your best. Remember, we want to be using some of those for our DDM assessments. That's coming up. As a matter of fact, speaking about that, what we're going to be doing, we are going to be like traveling in duality here, right? On one end, we're going to be dealing with SketchUp and the advanced features of SketchUp and compositing and that kind of stuff. And on the other end, we are going to be dealing with InDesign, right? As a matter of fact, I want to show you.
A
Um,
few persons in the waiting room, sir.
oh, I thought I disabled the waiting room. Oh, they are
There-
stuck there. Even though I disabled it, I did not know that.
Oh, you just disabled it.
Right, I disabled it after the join.
Okay.
All right, let everybody. Thanks for
So they
telling
would
me
have to
that.
rejoin. They'd have to rejoin,
No
right?
man, no, no, no. I just admit them all. It's okay.
Oh, okay, okay.
Everybody should be joining now. Hey guys,
Excuse me, sir.
sorry, I seem to have locked you out, and I did not know that that you were there in the waiting room because I disabled the room. I thought when you disable it, everybody who outside automatically come in, but apparently not. Okay, so this is take
Excuse
2.
me, sir.
Welcome again, guys. So what I was saying, I was just mentioning that I know that you guys have your interim on Friday, so I'm eagerly awaiting you to complete these studio projects so that we can use some of those nice graphics for our portfolio assessment in DDM. So that should be interesting. So, I mean, don't throw away all your graphics, guys. Keep your graphics. Not that you're going to throw it away because you do need it for a portfolio, right? But anyway, keep those graphics. If you use Photoshop or Illustrator, just put them in somewhere that you can find them back because we are gonna need it for for DDM, right? So I was just explaining that to you guys. We're going to be traveling in like duality here. On one side, we're going to be dealing with SketchUp, and on the other side, we're going to be dealing with InDesign, right? Um, I was about to show you um, on the class website, right? You log on to the class website here. Oh, actually, wait. This is a video. It looks so much. There we go. Right. So, on the class website here, there we go. Um, you should be able. Let's go to PDM. All right. So you should be able to see all of this now, right? Let me turn up the quality a little bit. It's gonna get choppy, but I want you to see some of the words here, right? Right. So now, I wanted to show you the timeline, right? So that you can keep track of where we are in the big scheme of things, right? So we're making some good time. We have finished exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Then take a look at this section here on the timeline. Where is my little marker there? Right. So now is when we're going to be dealing with assignment 1. And I think I had explained this already, but just reiterating again. Now, in order to do assignment 1, which you're going to be issued it today, we are going to do advanced techniques in Sketchup, and we're gonna, so you can apply that to your assignment 1. And we're going to be looking on compositing, some more advanced techniques in Sketchup. So the idea is that while the assignment is running, these 2 classes will be able to help you guys to complete your assignment 1. All right. Now notice something else. We do have another assessment here that's called portfolio, and this is checkpoint 1. Here is checkpoint 2 down here, which is coming in a couple weeks later, right? Now this is where we're going to use your studio project, right? And we're going to use InDesign to make some awesome architectural presentation boards, right? And these presentation boards will form a part of your portfolio. But before we can do that, we do have to you have to actually complete your design studio projects first. All right. So now this week we're going to look at advanced SketchUp techniques, but next week we might split ourselves between the 2. And well, I was making the analogy today, just like how you get served with a court order, you know, when somebody shows up at your doorstep or your workplace and hands you some documents and say, hey, you have been served. So officially today you have been served assignment 1, right? And we're going to look at it now, right? And oops, I'm marking up the place. Let's clear that. Right. So if you follow me on the website, zoom out a bit. We scroll down here now. Oh, I forgot to say, guys, we are also streaming as well. So if for any reason I'm trying something out, if we do something in the session and you miss it, technically the stream is supposed to be right behind it by a minute or 30 seconds, so you could actually catch it on the stream. So I'm gonna send you the link for that stream in the chat. Okay, I call it link for stream. Okay, you got that? Everybody seen that?
Yes, sir.
All right, good to go. Okay, now, what was I saying now? So the idea is that now, if you scroll down, well, scroll up. Here we have assignment 1. Right, so we finished these guys already. That's in the bag. 10% in the bag for, I hope, everybody here. All right, we will soon see. But anyway, so if I click on assignment 1, this is what it looks like. Right, now notice there are no due dates on it, and I'm kind of shying away from putting due dates on the handouts. Your due date is actually on the site, because when you scroll across on that timeline, you can see that assignment 1. If I click on it there, we can see that assignment 1, here it is due October 20th. All right. All right, so assignment 1 is due October 20th right there. So that is your due date. All right, so let's go back to it. So this is what assignment 1 is, right? It's definitely going to be fun. At least I think it's fun. And the idea is that we're going to model this building. And I hope some of us can recognize some familiar things from this. Anybody notice this reflection here? Anybody remember where we learned reflections?
Assignment 1, sir.
Ah,
Exercise 1, sir.
In
Yes, sir.
exercise 1.
Exercise 1.
Right.
Sir.
Right. So that is where we would turn our knowledge to get those things done. Now there are some additional things in here. So for example, there's a background image there. There's an entourage here that has been cut out. You guys know how to do that already. And that also has some shadow. But of course, the main meat of the matter is this building that needs to be modeled. Now, we did model a Lego brick earlier. But now it's time to level up, right? So we're going to model something bigger and badder. But don't worry, we're going to do some practice first. Oh, I need to clear that. Right. We're going to do some practice first before we do this. Okay, guys? So not to worry. All right. Okay, now just to kind of quickly go through what it is. Assignment, this is the building that you're going to model, and you're going to be given these two plans, right? From these two plans, you need to create this model. Now, I can tell you from now, when you look at the plans, you're going to be, but sir, I didn't get the roof plan, the rear elevation, and the side elevation. Well, I can tell you that that has been strategically left out, right? Because what we are doing today and what we have been doing is learning how to use proportion to do our modeling. So we're going to use proportions to fill in the blanks. Anybody had any trouble with the Lego brick? Anybody?
Sir, like the interior of the Lego brick was kind of giving me some problems, especially where when it reaches the point where I have to make the underneath circles and also the one projecting from down below.
Sounds
But
like
I figured it out.
So that you saying that part gave you some drama.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else experience any other troublesome part?
With the exercise, sir?
Yeah, the last exercise.
I haven't been able to do it yet, sir, because I do have a lot.
Okay, cool. Well, this should be a kind of a cross between modeling with dimensions and freeform modeling, right? The dimensions are here, but not all of them. And there are 3 deliverables that we need to carry in for this project, right? Now, the first thing we need to do is we're going to trace those plans using Illustrator. That's like a nice little warm-up because the plans are really simple. I mean, if you look on it there, it's really simple, right? You're going to put some furniture inside. You guys know how to do this already from your exercise 4. And you're going to deliver that to me as a PDF and an Illustrator file. Cool. Now, next, for the, oops, that's way too big. Yeah. For our second submission now, you're going to submit the Sketchup file and an image of the model by itself. All right, so that is when you complete the model, you're going to submit that. Now the third and final part is going to be composition, right? So what you're going to need to do now is to throw in a background. You're going to use Photoshop to do that. And, you know, some reflections and things like that. And you're going to send me the JPEG. I'm going to actually remove the collection of the Photoshop file because they are so big, and over the years my Google Drive has gotten full because of them. All right. Now we are going to learn a little bit of how to complete this in the next coming sessions, right? In particular, we're going to stretch our fingers today as it relates to modeling, and then we're going to check out compositing next week. All right. And that will be how we would get this image done via using compositing. All right. All right. So, and here are some tips. And guess what? I even gave you guys a little cheat sheet. And I call it a cheat sheet because I want you to feel bad if you have to use it, right? So now, remember, you have 3 weeks to finish the assignment. For those of you who feel confident enough with SketchUp, you can get started to do that. The handout is right there on the site. And if you need any guidance, you can access this cheat sheet here. Where did I put it? Oh, I put it under Unit 3. And if I scroll down there, here it is. There is one for the modeling. So let me open this. All right. So this is the cheat sheet for the this is the cheat sheet for the compositing. Right. Now we're going to do this as well, but just in case you know how to do this already, you can use this as a kind of memory jogger, you know, and go through it and see if you can figure out how we got these things in. All right. There we go. So these are just some tips there. If we look for the model now, and here is the cheat sheet for the model, right? So I kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Then I carried them in SketchUp and scale them, make sure my dimensions are correct. Then I would scale them and start with the floor. And guess what? I can tell you from now, this is not necessarily the best way to model it. So if you follow me, if you follow this method, I mean, you might come up with a much easier way to build this building. This is just one way that was done when I was messing around, you know? There it is. But I am challenging you guys to not use this, right? Figure it out on your own. Only rely, that's why I call it a cheat sheet, even though I'm not going to deduct marks for actual cheating, if you know what I mean. All right, so what do you guys think? Can manage it?
Easy, sir.
Yeah, man. Easy breezy. Cover girl. Right? All right, so what we're going to do today, though, is we are going to model some of these objects here. And 3 of them to be exact. I'm going to walk you through how to do one. But I want to highlight the importance of why we're doing this. Let's take a look on one of these sketches. Let me bring up this one. And let's zoom it in a little bit. Right. Now, this is obviously just a quick kind of sketch. It's not a bad sketch either. But think about when you're conceptualizing for studio and you're trying to work out what do I do? What does this space look like? What does this building look like? and you're kind of going through your brain and you're figuring out masses and volumes, and the easiest way you do this is by sketching, right? So you might quickly sketch something out real quickly, and it gets the initial information out of your brain. But even with sketching, there are some unanswered questions that still remain. So, for example, if you think about it, right, so if you think about it, let's go with that one. You know, what's really happening behind these areas and, you know, behind here? I mean, when we do a sketch, sometimes we kind of project what we have in our brains. And the great thing about a sketch is that we don't yet know what's happening with certain parts of our design, but we can tell obviously what's happening with these parts that we can see. That's these parts here. Now, what I want to challenge you to do, I want to give you a workflow that I think is going to be useful for you for life, right? When you're trying to work out designs. And that workflow, in case, step one would be to sketch out. All right, so sketch out your idea, but only sketch it out maybe 50%. And maybe 50 to, I don't know, 70%. Now the reason I said this, you don't want to stay the whole time sketching concepts. Anybody here spend the whole time sketching concepts and not starting to produce their studio work? Anybody ever fall into that trap? No? We're all experts by now.
Sir, that happened to me, sir.
Exacto mundo. So, I want to introduce to you 3D modeling, but as a sketch. So, when you're working out a sketch, only work it out 50% of the way, maybe even less. Some of us may have better skills with 3D, so you only need a 10% sketch and then the rest is 3D. Some of us need to figure it out more. But if you look on this sketch here, I would say this sketch is maybe about 60% in terms of figuring out. And why I said that? Well, there is a rough idea of what's happening with the two facades, but what's happening with the roof, what's happening with the back, what's happening with the context, there's so much unanswered questions. But rather than doing another sketch to work out what is happening with those parts, I recommend now the next step, which is convert concept sketch to 3D. So that 3D will fill in that 50% or that 30% that is remaining. Now remember, this is a concept, so you're not like working out an entire building per se, but this is just helping you to flesh out a concept. Flesh out part of it by sketch, then convert the sketch to 3D, and then flesh out the rest of your concept in 3D. All right, and that workflow is what we're gonna try out today, and then I want you guys to even try it out with when you're doing your next project. I mean, you're in this conceptual stage now. You can't leave out sketching, because sketching is the best way to get those raw ideas out of your brain. But I'm telling you, if you try to sketch out everything, it's like your brain gets more confused, because you're going to have to now piece those sketches together in a virtual environment in your head. Now, if you just sketch out enough so you can create a 3D sketch, then you can explore more options with your model, but in a 3D environment. So what we're going to do here, we're going to try this concept out today, and we're going to try it out 3 times. I'm going to help you with one of them, and then you're going to do 2 more, right? And as usual, our video today is going to be partially real time and partially pre-recorded. You know how we go. So I'm going to pick this one here. And I'm going to work this out in, we're going to sketch this using Sketchup. So I want us to fire up Sketchup now. And we're also going to explore some other advanced features in Sketchup using this model. Now what I'm going to do is I want you guys to submit these 3 models for me, and we're going to count this as our class activity number 3, right? And I'll just put a little button on the site, right? Right now there is no button, but I'm just going to label another one that's called class activity 3, and you will just submit it that way. All right, guys? All right, any question thus far? No? Okay, so we are ready to rumble then. All right. Okay. So let's fire up SketchUp and get rolling. All right. We need to I need to share this audio with you. Hang on one sec. Let me open the video so you can get some audio. Do-do-do-do. 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 Do-do. All right, so I need you guys to download those well, you don't have to download them, but the pictures of the models, you would need to download them so that you can follow along. All right, everybody knows where to find it. Oops, keep forgetting that's a video. Go to the website, scroll all the way down to Unit 3, Intro to 3D Media, and you can just grab these images directly from the website. All right, let me find this video now.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, Christian?
Yes, sir. To be clear, we're supposed to sketch all 4 of them in
Well, 3 of them.
SketchUp.
So you can pick any three in SketchUp.
Okay, sir.
All right, but I'm going to actually walk you through the first one. All right, good. Okay, welcome to another practical session. And in this, all right, let's share that screen real quick. Some stuff are in front of it. Just trying to clear make some space on my screen here. All right, good to go, good to go. View minimal interface. All right, good to go. Now, those of you that's not quite sure of what to do, you can just follow along on the stream. All right. Alrighty, here we go. There's that, and I'm gonna try to keep the chat open. And try to keep that open. Practical session, we are going to be exploring more advanced modeling techniques and features of SketchUp. So, by the way, you guys can hear the audio okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, good, good, good. If we head on to the website and we scroll down, we can actually see some sketches here. And these sketches represent like hand sketches. Think about the process of creating a concept for maybe a design or an idea for a building. You might do some sketches of maybe sizes and proportions and what you think your design might look like. Now, the sketch is important because it's a direct representation of what is in your brain, but it's not complete. So for example, if I look at this model here, and let me download this model and open it up. Now, if I look at this model here, I can see that it's a form of a building, but there are questions that needed to be answered, like what's going on behind this building and all of that stuff. And this is where the ability to convert a sketch into a 3D model comes in, because you can now model this building and then use your imagination to extend what happens in areas that you can't see because it was a sketch. So that is exactly what we're going to do. And to do that, we're going to use SketchUp. We're going to put this to one side here, and I'm using the architectural millimeters template. It doesn't matter what template you do choose, because we are going to be using proportions in order to figure out what sizes these are. Now, in addition to that, I have turned on the large tool set because it's great to have all these tools up front. And after we sketch this in 3D, the next thing we're going to do is experiment with some of the visual features that SketchUp offers, right? So we're going to look at the style editor, we're going to look at shadows and perspective, and all of these will help us to form the basis to complete your assignment 1, which is coming up soon. Now, after we open SketchUp, the great thing we do have is a nice proportional figure here. So we have a rough idea of how tall an average person is, you know, maybe 5.5 feet thereabout. So right away we can use this to judge story. All right, so everybody has SketchUp open.
Yes, sir.
Anybody
Yes, sir.
experiencing any delays? All right, good, 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 good. All right, let's continue. And heights and things like that. And this is important because it is important that you rely on quick sketches. A sketch can get the idea out of your brain real quickly. The 3D will expand on that idea after you create what you had initially sketched. So we're going to look at how we would start with this model here. Okay, so now if we are to start a sketch like this, the first thing we'd have to do is kind of analyze a bit of what's happening here. So for example, well, we know that this is basically on a square base. So the first thing we could do is perhaps draw a square base, and I'm going to use my rectangle tool that is located here to do this. Now if I use that tool, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to start from the center. Remember, this is an estimate, so I'm going to assume that it is a square. So notice I get that guideline to tell me that, you know, this is an even square, and I'm going to make an assumption that maybe my building is about this big. Now remember, I don't really have any measurements. Instead, I'm just assuming that perhaps a person would maybe be about that stature. So maybe this level here is perhaps 1 story. So it's probably about 10 feet, thereabout. Now remember, so this is really coming from a sketch, so a couple of assumptions would have to be made. Now if I look at how the legs are turned, I could assume that maybe there is probably maybe something like that, maybe something like that, and then on the other side it's pretty similar. Now remember, because it's a sketch, I don't know exactly what's happening on the back side, but I can only assume. And this is the power of 3D. Now we have to start making some assumptions. You know, maybe there's another one on this side, I'm not sure, but we're gonna go with that assumption. Okay, so we are gonna get perhaps another rectangle tool like that. Now there is one very important fact that we need to consider when using SketchUp. Now SketchUp has what I'd like to term as sticky fingers, meaning, notice I've drawn this shape over here. If I use my move tool, which is located here, and I click at a location to grab the object, so I click once. Okay, sorry, let me highlight that object first. So I'm going to use my selection tool, highlight the object, then use my move tool and click at a location to grab the object, and I click once and then move the mouse. I'm not holding down on the button, but I'm just clicking once. Now when I move this here, and you don't have to follow me, I'm just demonstrating what I call sticky fingers, and I drop it there. Now what you will notice is if you try to move this again, you will see that this is now stuck to where you have put it, and this Now, has anybody ever noticed this in SketchUp when you were building the model?
Yes, sir.
Is it, well, you can give me some opinions here. Is it more of an annoyance or it is a useful feature?
I'd say it's a balanced feature, sir. I'd say it has its pros and cons.
Okay. The interesting thing about this is that I think this is primarily unique to SketchUp. Most 3D programs you use don't really just stick to each other. But anyway, this is going to be one of the main significant factors that affect how you do the assignment. Alright, let's continue. This is essentially how SketchUp operates by default. Once two shapes touch, they are going to basically merge. This is perhaps one of the primary things you need to understand of how SketchUp works. And this is kind of unique to SketchUp because this, if you use a lot of 3D modeling software, this feature is actually quite weird in my opinion. So anyway, I'm going to undo that. So remember, once two shape touch, doesn't matter even if it goes inside, it has now become a part of that shape. It's now stuck together. So what we want to do is, to avoid this, we would have to turn this shape into a group or a component. And we're going to look at the difference between the two. Now, when something is a group, it's all individual. So for example, I can select this and let's say I want to make a copy of this. Well, I could do the regular copy and paste. I'm going to put this over here. Now this copy, what I'll do is right click and I would say make it into a group. Now notice the difference between the, notice the different terminologies that currently exist. You can have an object as a group, or you can have an object as a component. So again, if I right click, I can get the option to make it a group or a component. Now I'm going to make this one a group, and now it's a group. So let me use my selection tool and deselect. If I click on this shape, the entire shape selects. This is my original over here, and if I click on it, notice that I'm still able to select one line, and I can select another line, and I can actually click my move tool and just move this line alone and so forth. But if I click on this, I'm not able to select one line. It's going to select the entire object, and if I try to move it, the whole object will move. And that's because this object is now a group. Now once an object is grouped, then it doesn't suffer from the same sticky fingers. So for example, if I highlight it first and then I go to my move tool and I move this object here, then voila, it does not stick to the object because it is kind of encased in a group, right? And not, I would call it, exposed to this sticky fingers syndrome. Now there is another interesting thing about groups. And all right, so you guys, everybody noticed that. Now the idea is that you guys ideally should be following along as we go through. Is everybody following along? Anybody needs any?
I'm following, sir.
Anybody having any trouble thus far following along? Nope. So we are all alive and kicking, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's proceed.
Yep.
And to demonstrate this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this original again. So let's keep track of it. This one here is the original, and this one here is a group. Now, that is G, so that represents group, and this is the original. Now if I select the original, and I'm going to do the same thing again, I'm going to copy and paste that over here. Now this time I'm going to right click it and I'm going to make it a component. Now when I make it a component, it's going to ask me to name the component, right? So I'm going to call this example, because I'm giving an example, so I'm going to name the object example. So this is essentially giving this component some properties, right? And you can see you can give it size, price, and name. Essentially you're adding more information to this object, but we're just going to add as a name called example as the only information. I'm going to go to create. Now what we have here is a component, so I'm going to put C there because this is a component. Now the interesting thing about components is if I should copy the component, so I'm going to go copy and paste. So I've now copied the component, and I'm going to do the same thing to the group. I'm going to copy the group and paste the group. All right, so in here we have a component, and here we have a group. Now I mean, I don't need to copy the original, we have been copying it since, but I'm still going to copy it, so I'm going to copy the group here. So here we have the original object. Now the thing about this is, as you know, the original object is really just two different objects, but of course we know when something is exposed as an original object, once it touches anything else, you try to move it again, it becomes stuck. So we know that when you have objects in SketchUp, that is what will happen. Now of course, if the object is a group and we move it, I'm going to start using the shortcut, my shortcut keys, which is M. And if I move it here, then I can always move it again. I have no worries. Now, if I click on the component and I use the move tool, then you're going to notice pretty much the same thing. I can still move it around and it won't stick. Now, the difference with components is that I can edit the component still. So too can I edit the group. So if I wanted to go back and edit this shape, I would have to, the easiest way to do it, I could double click or I could right click and go to edit group. Let's use the double click because that's the most popular method. So I'm going to double click. Now notice when I go into this group, everything else becomes gray, and this is telling me that, hey, now I'm inside this group, and now I'm able to select these individual lines, which are the elements that make up the group. So if I go to my move tool, I can actually manipulate this group like that. Now if I wanted to save this, then the easiest thing for me to do is to use my selection tool and just double click in an open area, and that is how we manipulate a group. Now that I've come out of the group, it's now a single shape again, and I can just move it around as one element. I don't have to worry about the sticky fingers and so forth. Now on the other hand, if we should edit a component, and I'm going to double click this now, just like the group, I'm able to go in and modify these elements. However, the big difference here is that when I modify one element, you notice both elements actually change. Now, if I come out of this this component group, then I can still have these separate objects. So I can still move these around, and they function as objects. However, you can see that these two objects are actually linked together. So you can think about things like that repeat, like ballistas or columns, and there are many other uses for this feature. You might have a case when you need something to be grouped so that they don't stick together, but in some cases you don't want when one change all of them changes, and in some cases you do want that. So these are the three examples between group and component and just a regular object in SketchUp. Alright, so now that we have that example down, we can now start to plan how we want to do these columns, because I would do these columns as components because it's going to repeat. So in this case, I would draw one of the columns first, and notice that I'm drawing it on the outside because I don't want it to touch this element yet, or else of course it will stick. So I'm gonna highlight this and I'm gonna call this I'm gonna go make component, and I'm gonna call this column. And I'm going to choose create. Then I'm going to use my move tool and just kind of guesstimate. I could say that this is perhaps about like there, and I'm going to copy this, Control C, Control V, and what I can do is just hover from this end here slowly, and you will see that I have it aligned. There we go. So maybe this is about there, and I am gonna put another column on this side. So then what I would do is copy these now. So there we go. Then I would now rotate. So I would use the rotate tool here, and the rotate tool can be a little tricky sometimes to use. How it works is that you need to first position the protractor. So the first click is to position the protractor. So I'm going to rotate it this way, and the third click is to rotate the object according to the protractor. There we go. So you have to do 3 clicks to let the protractor work. Now there are some additional techniques with the Okay guys, is everyone following? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's proceed. Protractor, but we'll touch them as we go along further. All right, so we are gonna move this one back here, right? And this is really representing this back one column there, right? All right, so these are all components, and so the idea is when we extrude one, all 3 of them will change. Now you can keep an eye on what these objects are. In case you don't remember if this was a group or component, you would find that in your default tray under entity info. So when you expand that, you would see that it says you have a component that's selected. If I selected this object, you would see that it says, you know, you have a face selected. All right. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is figure out what we're going to do for the back. So I would say we would copy these two guys. So we're gonna select these two persons, these two items here, and then we're gonna copy that. Control C, Control V. There we go, and we're gonna just hover here and just use the polar snapping to just get the angles right. And then I'm gonna assume that there will be another piece like this. Control C, Control V, and I'm gonna copy that maybe over there. All right, now we have those. We need to extrude this now, and to do that we're gonna double click so that we can edit this group. But the idea is, because these are all components, we're able to extrude one and extrude all. Now if this is going to be the height of a floor, then this is probably going to be about this high. About that. We're going to use the selection tool and double click outside to come back out of that group. Alright, great. So we have these columns done now. So now we have to have the base of the building. Now we could copy this base and actually work with it. So let's do that. We're gonna select the base here, and then we're gonna copy it upwards.
Did you use the push or pull tool? So it's not working for me, sir. You hearing me?
Oh, you said it's not working?
The push or pull.
Oh. All right. Well, what you would need to do is remember that it is a component. So you really have to go inside the group by double clicking it and then push pull it, because you can't push pull a component directly.
Or repeat that, sir.
You would need to double click to go inside.
Okay, double click.
To go
Okay.
inside the component, and then you push pull it. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Good to go. All right. So let's continue. Now, there's a trick to doing a copy in SketchUp. If I go to there's actually a let's go here, and now to copy in SketchUp, what you want to do is, well, first we need to select what we want to copy. Now we have been copying using the Control C, Control V, but we can also copy using the move tool and holding Control while we move. So in this case, I'm gonna grab this corner like this, and here is the trick. In order to copy this going upwards, I would need to orbit so that my view is mainly flat, and that way I am able to, remember to hold Control, I'm able to copy this going upwards like that. So then I would have created the base of this object, which is that element there. So what is left for me to do is for me to extrude this object upwards. And I would say maybe this is about maybe 3 times the height. Maybe like that. Right? Remember, what we're doing is creating a kind of sketch. Now, another interesting thing is that the perspective on this shot is a bit different. So in order to allow this to look like this, we would need to adjust the angle of view, and we can do that by going to camera and going to field of view, and we're gonna click, hold, and drag. Now as we drag, you see that we're getting more of a worm's eye view, right? And the building is becoming more skewed, which is a little bit similar to this view here. All right, now the next thing we want to do, so we want to go back to the move tool, is we want to start to cut this window shape out. So to do that, we're going to use the pencil tool, and we're going to just draw on top of this, and we're going to use the axis to kind of guide us, so we know that we are going vertically down and horizontally across on the X. We're going to do the same thing for here. There we go. There we go. All right. Now that we have that done, we want to probably use the push pull tool, and we want to hover over this inner section and push this inward, and hover over this section and push this inward.
I was saying, what did you press to get the view?
Say again?
I was asking, what did you press to get the view? Like a perspective view, like.
Oh, to get the view to look more like a perspective, right? So you would go to camera, and then you go to point of view. Let me show you here. If you look at the, well, I show you on the other screen here. But that's actually maybe too small. But anyway, you go to camera, and hold on, let me make that a little bit bigger so that we can see exactly what we're saying.
Yeah.
You found it? You go to camera.
Nope. Yeah. And I'm seeing perspective.
Right, see here, field of view. And when you click field of view,
okay,
you're able to make it less or more worm-like.
Okay.
Alright.
Alright, so thanks.
There we go. That looks pretty similar. Then we want to cut this shape out at the back. So let's try something different. What we can do is use the rectangle tool, and we can actually just draw a rectangle to represent that space there. Like about that. And then we can use the push pull tool again and just push this inward. Let's just do that twice. Yeah. All right, and see, that was pretty simple. Now, what I want you guys to do now is try and imagine what happens around here. Because remember, we only sketch what happens here. So I'm going to leave it up to your imagination to kind of do some suggestions for what happens here. Now, while that is done, we're going to use this opportunity to explore some of the features of Sketchup. Right, before we go any further, what I want us to consider is you see, in doing the imaginative component that I was mentioning a while ago, meaning let's see, this section around the back that I was suggesting that you should do with your own, you should improve with your own imagination. What I want you guys to do is let's do that afterwards, because I want us to go ahead and that's this section here, right? Before you submit it, you can mess with it and come up with different kind of arrangements of what should happen to the pushing and pulling around the back here. You know, you're free to come up with your own kind of ideas and, you know, just mess with it a bit. But we're not going to do that now. Instead, what we're going to do is we are going to just proceed into learning styles. After you learn the styles, then you guys can go off on your own and detail all these other areas. All right? It's just in the interest of time. We're just going to go straight through all the advanced features. All right. Are there any questions thus far? Nope. Everybody is good to go? Everybody alive?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We are alive.
You sure? All right, so we're gonna continue. The good news is that I don't envision that it will be a really long class because we do have, you know, you're gonna really do the other models on your own. All right, so not to worry, you will have much time to work on your interims that I'm sure is on the forefront of you guys' mind. All right, so let's continue. Okay, welcome to another. Then we're gonna fill this bit using to extrude. So I'm gonna leave it up to your imagination to kind of do some suggestions for what happens here. Now, while that is done, we're going to use this opportunity to explore some of the features of SketchUp. Now, when we're using SketchUp, we're going to go to our default tray here, and this time I'm going to pin it. So we haven't really been using this tray, but now we're actually going to start using it. Now I am going to look under let's first take a look at some features. So if I look under shadows, I'm able to turn on my shadows using that button there. So what I need to do is click it and notice that it's pressed, and then you can see the shadows on my screen. There we go. And I can adjust that shadow by adjusting the time of day. I can even adjust the areas in shade, how bright or dark it should be, and the areas in light. All right. So that is a quick idea of how we get shadows going. Now, the next thing I want us to look on is our materials. Now, you may have some materials that are built into SketchUp. However, the materials that are shown here may not be included in your version of SketchUp. But let's not worry about that. What we're going to do first is just to kind of understand how this material tab works. So, if I take a look at this tab, yes, there are default materials here. There is a preview window here. And when you click on any material or color here, you will see a preview of it here. Now there are some icons along the side here, but I'm gonna ask you to go to this drop down menu that we have here. And what these are categories of materials that we can choose. Now, depending on your version of SketchUp, you may not have all of these categories, but we're going to start with one that we all should have. So we're going to look at the color category. And if I scroll through, you would see quite a bit of colors here. Now, what we're going to do is let's try with some earth tone colors. So I'm going to go for that color there. Now, in order to apply this here, you will need to have the paint brush, the paint bucket tool selected. Now, this paint bucket tool works very similar to the paint bucket tool in Photoshop. For example, let's color the window here. So let's actually look for like a more blue color, and we're going to fill. There we go. Then we're going to fill this base with a different color. So let's go back to our earth tone colors here. I'm going to choose something a bit light, and I am going to actually, there we go. I'm going to actually just fill these areas in. There we go. Now I believe this area is actually filled, but what happened is that the sun, I think the sun is a bit too bright. So let me go back to my shadows tool here, and I'm going to adjust the brightness of the sun. Can you see that? So if I made the sun really bright, it basically washes out the color. So I'm going to put it back at about 50%. There we go. All right, let's color the insides. There we go. And let's get another color for the columns that we're doing here. So we're going to go to materials, and there we go. Now, of course, even though these are components, I can still color them differently. However, if I was to go inside one of these groups and then color the material, then what would happen is, let's do an example here. All of them will have the same color, and it would actually override the color that it is given. Because remember, these are components, so the idea is when you apply the color to one, it will apply to all. Alright, so that is just a quick idea of how we add color. Now texture is pretty much the same thing, so let's go to wood, and I'm going to choose a texture here, and I'll just pick a color, hit the paint bucket tool. Oh, actually it's not applying because I'm still inside the group here, so I need to double click. So use my selection tool and double click. There we go. And now I am able to apply material. Now, as we get a little deeper in applying materials, you might want to change the scale of the material. You might say, well, the scale of this wood is too small, I want to make it bigger. Now, in order to do that, this is when we start to go into the properties of the material. So we'll now need to go over to the edit side of the materials category. And under the edit side, you can see a couple options here. Now first, you can see where the texture file is located. You can see where you adjust color, and the scale is adjusted by these two values here. So if we should, well, we're gonna lock this. No, that is locked. And if we increase the size here, so we make it 900 by 900, you will see that the size changes. So let me give you an example. If it was 300, then you will see the size change. So it really changes instantly. Let's try 1500. So you can clearly see now the texture size is much bigger. Now, in addition to changing the materials, you can also create your own material. So let's create our own color. Let's assume, so we're going to go back over to the select and we're going to go back down to color. Right. So let's assume that none of these colors are colors that you would like. Well, to create your own material color, you are going to go to that's that icon right there, and that icon will bring up, well, it's going to bring up whatever material we currently have selected. So we are gonna maybe select like white, and then we're gonna bring it up. Now it's gonna show us a preview of what we have selected, but we can rename this. We can call this Ryan's Red, and then we're gonna pick a color. There we go. If we wanted to, we could use a texture, but we're just going to choose color for this, and we're going to choose OK. Now if you see that we have a color called Brand's Red, and that color is saved in the model. Now we can simply just apply that color to our object, and that is in a simple way how we add color. Now, another really great feature of Sketchup is the ability for it to use styles, right? And this is perhaps one of the hallmarks of using SketchUp. Now, when you go to the Style tab, you will notice that you are able to select some styles, and just like the Materials tab, you will see you will have categories of styles. Now, on the default style, we're currently maybe using one of these styles here. Now, to change styles, you simply just click, and you'll notice that these are all various styles that we can use. Now, things start to get interesting when you change it to, for example, maybe sketch edges. And if you check out these styles, well, they kind of look like a sketch, which is pretty awesome. You can try the white and black. And you even have some with color. That's right there. If you see like assorted styles, so for example, this is another interesting one here. There we go. This one kind of looks like a marker. And if you check out this category, style builder competition winners, and you must be saying, wait a minute, you can actually build these from scratch, right? These are styles that this person has built and they got featured in SketchUp. So if you want to now build your own style, well, to do that, you're going to use the edit tab. So to see how this works, let's go back to default and let's put back our model on the first one, which is pretty much the default that SketchUp starts with. Now when you go over to the edit, notice these main categories here. So the idea is that you would, in each of these categories, you would edit, and the full combination of editing each one of these creates your own style. All right, so let's check that out. So if I go to the first option here, it's all about edges, and I want you to look at these edges now as we change this. So we can, for example, say no edges, and if you notice, there are no internal edges, no profiles. Now you see there's no profiles there. We can turn on edges, we can turn on back faces. You can kind of see the little dash lines there for the back faces. Then you can turn on profiles, and profiles gives the bounding outline a particular thickness, and you can actually increase this thickness. Let's put it to 7. Here we go. So you can see a kind of a thick outline there. Depth Q kind of adds the line changes depending on how far it is. Then we have the extension. This one is pretty cool. Let's put that to 7. What that does, to make you see it, let's put it to 50. There we go. It creates these extensions. You have endpoints, which kind of adds a little kind of bulb to the end. And then you have jitter, which is, it basically allows the lines to look a bit more sketchy, as you can see here. So you can come, and all of these options are just about lines, and of course you can change the color. Now the next thing is the face settings, and each one of these has its own settings as well. So when we go to the face setting, we can say what is the front and the back face. Now as you can see, this face has materials because we actually applied materials. So the option that we select here, it is shaded faces, but if we should select wireframe, then you would only get the wireframe. It can be white, and then when the faces are white, all faces would be determined by this color. So if I put this to like red, blue, but we see where that comes in a bit further down. But this is where all faces are practically monochromatic. And here we show all the faces here. Now these faces have material, that's why you're not really seeing these material come through. But notice that you're seeing this base here change to blue, and that's because we actually did not apply a material to the blue. So if we didn't apply material here, it would get these default colors. Once we turn on this option here, notice that it now shows texture. So this only shows color, and then that shows texture. Right. And of course this makes it all the same color based on what we select. And then X-ray mode pretty much allows it to be semi-transparent, and you can combine that with any one of these modes. So you can just imagine the kind of variety that you can get. Then we want to speak about the backgrounds. Now currently the sky has a kind of a gradient, and the ground, well, we can adjust what the ground should be. We can also adjust the background here, but right now we have the sky that's there. So if we didn't have the sky, then we would have just this background here. There we go. If we didn't have the ground, then we would have what we have here. So we're going to leave it on ground. And that is essentially what this area does. Now, watermarks is what we're actually going to use to complete the assignment 1. And the idea of a watermark is that you apply an image that can really help you to align this image. Now we're gonna look at watermarks when we start to look more at compositing, meaning mixing an image, a 3D image, with a actual photo. So we're going to look at that when we're looking at the compositing topic. And then these are all modeling settings. So for example, do you want to show geometry that is hidden? When you select an object, what color do you want it to be? You know, this is really how it looks while you're working on it. Now, if we go over to mix, what mix is, it's kind of a way, if you, for example, liked a particular style, let's say that for sketchy lines, you love the way how this line looked. Well, what you can do is actually drag this and drop it over the edge lines, and what you will do is absorb the line from this style. So you can actually grab, so let's look at another one here. Let's say that you love the way how the background looked here. Well, what you can do is drag this image over background, and then it will grab whatever, however it was used in this image here. So that's an interesting way that you can actually mix the styles together. Now, if you like what you've done here, then you can actually save your style. So I could call this BDW style. There we go. And that way I can come back to it anytime. So that was a real quick look at how we can model elements in Sketchup and just simply model from a sketched image. Really simple, really intuitive, and how we can use styles to really enhance our drawing here. Now, whenever you're saving from Sketchup, you are just going to go to File and go to Say and go to Export. And you're going to export a 2D image, and this will allow you to save this image as a JPEG. So you can imagine how you could really take some of these sketches and add to your sketchbook, especially for conceptual sketches. This is an awesome tool. All right. Okay, guys, so that is pretty much what I would expect you guys to do for the other two models, right? Any questions on what we did? Do you need any anybody meet up on any brick wall? No?
So these or this video is accessible?
Yes, this video is accessible. I'm gonna also place a link to this stream, the same place where you guys normally access videos from, which is on the class website. So whichever one, it should be the same link, I believe. Maybe it might be a different link, because I think when you save the stream, it becomes a different link than what I gave you to watch the stream. But regardless, it will be in the same location that you normally see all the videos. All right.
Okay, sir.
All right, so I am gonna be looking forward to I guess I will check on you again next week, and I wonder who will maybe try to utilize some of these techniques for conceptualizing. You guys are doing your what is it now? Your second studio project. So there is a phase that you will have to, conceptualize stuff. Um, so what I will encourage you guys to do is to try out this method. Try and do your sketches, and maybe with one or two of your sketches, try to convert those sketches to 3D so you can explore it some more. So you're using both sketch and 3D together. That's the gist of it. All right. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
now you just in terms of the submission for this class activity, we're gonna run it the same way. So you just need to do it and submit it to me today. Hopefully, most of you followed along while we were modeling, for those who are not sure. And I know those of you who are very versed with SketchUp, you have probably blazed ahead and completed the other two models. Remember, when you are completing the models, you need to, don't forget the two things you need to do. You need to add whatever flair you want to add for the areas that you can't see in the sketch. And also, you're supposed to, use some kind of style, whether you want to use a pre-made one or you want to make up one, but I expect you to submit the sketch in some kind of style. All right. You can find number 3. You can find the button for the class activity on the site. You might need to refresh the site in order to see it, because it was recently added. Okay. But that is pretty much about it. So that ends our class for today, pretty much. Next
Sir,
week,
what are we going to submit the file in?
I just need a JPEG, right? If you want, you can submit more than one images per file, right? But so one or more images. I don't need the SketchUp file, I just need a JPEG. All right.
Okay, sir.
All right. So I'm gonna refresh the site now, and it should be there. Let me head over to the PC. All right. So if this is what you're seeing, I refresh now. Go. And that's 2, and yep, here we go, 3. So class activity 3, you just need to click this button here and it will submit the files. All right, guys. All right, I'm gonna also try to post the you will see a list come up of the persons who submit, so you can know if your submission was received. I'll put a little table below. All right. Okay, so
Okay, sir.
I think I feel confident that I can leave you guys now to wrap up this little class activity. And then next week we are gonna move on to composition. We're going to look at SketchUp and Photoshop. So, dust off those Photoshop skills we're gonna come right back around to it. Those of you who want
Question,
to
sir. So,
move, yeah.
so I was just asking, what about InDesign?
Right, InDesign will come after. What I'm gonna do is
Okay.
I'm prioritizing because your assignment 1 has been issued to you now. So I'm just gonna prioritize all of the things that you need in order to complete your assignment 1. All right. And as I said, some of you perhaps already know how to complete the assignment. You can start. If you're not feeling so confident, start part of it. But we're going to focus on it in the next coming classes. All right?
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, so I think
To speak to you afterwards. If
that is
you have
it.
time, please.
Somebody had a question? Nope.
I'd like to speak to you afterwards, if whenever you're through.
Oh, afterwards. All right. No problem. No problem. All right, guys. So if there is nothing else, I will we're gonna go now. So I'll speak to you right afterwards. Just hang on. I'm gonna just end the stream now, and then I will come back to you and put you in a breakout room so I can speak to you. All right. All right, guys. I'll see you next week, Monday. Take care and stay safe.